Hello viewers, in this session you will learn Tess of the D'Urbervilles, one of the most popular novels written by Thomas Hardy. It was published in 1891. It is the story of a woman named Tess, who is portrayed by the novelist as a typical character representing a class in the society. Here, Hardy demonstrates his deep sense of moral sympathy for the lower classes in England. After the publication of this novel, Hardy became famous for his compassionate portrayal of a young rural girl, Tess, who is victimized by her self-righteous English social morality. Introduction to Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy was born on June 2nd, 1840. He was a child of a builder who apprenticed Thomas to an architect, John Hick, at the age of 16. John Hick worked at Dorchestershire, which later became the model location for Hardy's fictional Casterbridge. During the apprentice, he seriously thought of university education and entry into the church. But declining religious faith and the lack of money forced him to start a career as a writer and poet. Then he wrote novels, short stories and poems. Thomas Hardy's literary sense was unquestionable. He had many admirers and critics as well. Some of the critics were offended by their violence and sexual content in Tess and the Jude the Obscure. The outcry against the novel Jude the Obscure was so great that Hardy decided to stop writing novels and continued to write his first great love, poetry. Hardy's conjugal life with Emma was not a happy one. Emma died in 1912 and in 1914 he got married with Florence Dugdale, who was deeply devoted to and concerned about him. The second marriage brought contentment in his family life and glory in professional life. His popularity reached its height and he was compared with Charles Dickens in terms of popularity and social acceptance as a poet and a writer. Such a great prolific novelist, poet and short story writer died on January 11, 1928. His ashes were buried in the Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. After his death, his second wife, Florence, published Hardy's autobiography in 2 parts under her own name. Thomas Hardy bequeathed most of his possessions, most notably his pen, to the nation. Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles and Jude the Obscure are considered to be the most controversial novels. These novels have such content which aroused the sentiments of the people and a few critics in particular. Hardy wrote both the novels in very difficult social circumstances. The British society was going through a phase of change. Common people were disappointed with the social strata. The whole country was making a slow but painful transition from old-fashioned agricultural country to a modern industrial one. Businessmen, industrialists, aristocrats, etc. controlled all affairs of the British society. The emerging middle class and working class wanted certain changes in the social structure. Businessmen and industrialists joined the aristocratic class and this move created a big gap between the two, which consistently increased in the course of time. Similarly, some families of the old aristocracy faded into obscurity. The present novel mainly depicts this obscurity of Tess's parent, who lost everything because they labored under the fantasy that they belonged to an aristocratic family of d'Urbervilles. In the novelist focuses on the concept that the family history is meaningless and purely undesirable. This portrayal of the family aroused the anger of the sentimental, conservative British people and mired this novel into controversy. The novel Tess of d'Urbervilles is a novel which is divided into 7 sections titled as phases. The 7 phases are the maiden no more, the rally, the consequence, the woman pays, the convert, and the fulfillment. The novel is a third-person narrative. All the phases are narrated from the point of view of the central character, Tess Durbeyfield. All the events narrated are properly arranged, and the novelist has used typical language in consonance with the background of the various characters. The characters belonging to urban or rural life speak in a suitable language. It makes this novel well equipped with the typical literary skill of the novelist. The novel has an imaginative style. Hardy uses it very skillfully. The plot of the novel is tight, the events are closely interconnected, and the readers are interested in reading about Tess and her plight. The novel has many characters who play a certain role in the development of the story. There are a few major and minor characters. The role of each one of them is quite crucial and has a direct or indirect link to the central character Tess. Tess Durbeyfield. Tess is a beautiful, loyal young woman who lives with her family in a small village, Malot. Tess belongs to a poor family. She is conscious of her being and has a keen sense of responsibility. She is committed to the family and does everything possible to serve all members in the family. She has been unfortunate because she lacks wise parenting, which reflects in her personality. Her father's discovery of belonging to an aristocratic family of d'Urbervilles makes Tess' life complicated. Her father sends her to the d'Urbervilles mansion where her misery starts. Alex tries to seduce her. Initially, Alex's attempts are unsuccessful, but once he manages to trap her and seduce her, resulting in her pregnancy. The irony in the novel is Tess and her family have no links with the d'Urbervilles family at all. Alex's father is a merchant named Simon Stokes, who simply changed his name after retirement. Tess gives birth to a child named Sorrow. The child passes away very soon after the birth. Then Tess meets Angel Clare and falls in love with him. Both of them confess their past. Tess forgives him for the deeds in the past, but Angel does not accept her for the bitter happenings in the past. Tess thinks that Alice is responsible for her misfortune and decides to take revenge upon him. Tess approaches Alice and kills him. In the end, Tess is arrested by the cops and executed for her crime. Angel Clare. Angel Clare is an intelligent man who prefers to live in the countryside rather than in the urban area. He decides to take up farming as his profession. His father and two brothers are clergymen. He meets Tess when she has been working as a milkmaid at Talbot's dairy. They fall in love but do not unite for their personal opinions. He helps Tess during a bad phase in her life. He cannot believe that Tess can murder Alice. Alec D. Urberwiles. Alec is the son of a merchant, Simon Stokes, who changed his name after the retirement. Alec is a handsome but unethical man who seduces Tess and ruins her life. Tess murders him in the end of the story. He is punished for his misdeeds and opportunistic attitude. Jack Durbeyfield. Jack Durbeyfield is the father of Tess. He is a lazy retailer in a small village, Mollett. Jack is naturally quick, but he hates work. So, he becomes lethargic at work. When he discovers that his family has certain links with the aristocratic family of D. Urberwiles, he becomes active to take the advantage from this link. His senseless act makes Tess' life unbearable. Mrs. Joan Durbeyfield. Mrs. Joan Durbeyfield is the mother of Tess. She is a simple-minded lady. She is excessively concerned about the life of her daughter. She is very optimistic about Tess and expects some change in her life, but the unfortunate developments in the life of Tess put her in agony. She is sympathetic towards Tess and takes utmost care during her pregnancy. Joan gives moral support to Tess during the bad phase of her life. Mrs. D. Urberwiles. Mrs. D. Urberwiles is the mother of Alec and wife of a merchant named Simon Stokes. She is blind and always ill. She is not sympathetic towards people of the lower class. She does not care for her maid, Elizabeth, and Tess as well. On the contrary, she cares more for her animals and pets. Reverend Clare. Reverend Clare is the father of Angel Clare. He is a clergyman, principled, and quite dedicated to religious causes. He thinks that every human being owes a debt to society and one has to return something or the other to the society. Reverend Clare tries to convert Alice D. Urberwiles, but in vain. Mrs. Clare. Mrs. Clare is the mother of Angel Clare and wife of Reverend Clare. She is good but has a superiority complex. She thinks herself superior than others, especially the lower classes. She wants her son, Angel, to marry a woman of a suitable social status, quite equal to them in the respect of religion and financial position. Mrs. Clare initially looks down upon Tess as a simple girl who is impoverished, but later she appreciates her. There are a few minor characters as well. They also play a crucial role in the development of the story. Reverend Felix Clare, Reverend Cuthbert are the two brothers of Angel and sons of Reverend Clare and Mrs. Clare. Eliza Lucia Durbeyfield is a sister to Tess. Tess gives birth to Sorrow, who survives for a short time. Tess has some colleagues named Marian, Is Hewitt, and Retty Priddle, who worked with Tess at the Talbothays Dairy. Another minor character is Mercy Chant, who is a daughter of Reverend Clare's friend. Reverend Clare wants his son Angel to marry her. The novel has a fanatic Victorian ideal of identity and belonging to a prestigious family. Jack Durbeyfield, Tess' father, discovers that their family has a legacy to de Urberwiles and wants to get associated with them. He thinks that de Urberwiles' family would change their life and especially Tess' fortune. This futile optimism is the base of this novel, which continued till end, and Durbeyfields are disappointed for their lurking hope. Tess Durbeyfield is sent to the de Urberwiles mansion with optimism that Mrs. de Urberwiles would change her fortune. Nothing happens as expected. On the contrary, Alice, son of de Urberwiles, seduces her and puts her life at stake. Then onwards, lifetime struggle of Tess begins and she suffers for no fault. Her pregnancy from Alice adds on to her misery. She fights back the difficulties in life with the moral support of her mother, Mrs. John Durbeyfield, and father, Jack Durbeyfield. Then she matures into a beautiful woman who can strike out on her own. She is confident and has become independent. She works as a maid in a dairy farm where she meets Angel Clare and both fall in love for each other. They decide to marry and live together. In the beginning, everything goes on well. Once they disclose each other's past, the situations change and another phase of suffering starts for Tess. She forgives Angel for his past misdeeds, but Angel does not. She is denied forgiveness by her husband and she comes back to her parents' home at Malot. In the course of time, she develops hatred for Alice, who has ruined her life and makes him responsible for the recent happenings and denial by her husband. It affects her psychology deeply and converts her internally to take revenge. The phase comes to an end with Alice's proposal in order to save her life and the family from all hurdles. Determined Tess takes her revenge and kills Alice. Angel helps her in dire need and tries to save her from the cops. She spends several blissful days with her husband, who is changed considerably and ready to forgive her. He loves her and is ready to forget her past. Unfortunately, they cannot continue for long and Tess is stressed by the cops and arrested. The novel comes to an end with the execution of Tess for the crime committed. Themes in the novel. The novel has many themes which run parallel throughout. The theme of injustice, the theme of social values, and the theme of male-dominated British society are some of the prominent themes in this novel. Theme of injustice. The theme of injustice is one of the major themes of this novel. Tess is the character who pays for no fault. She becomes the victim of the sexual assault of Alice and the denial of forgiveness by her husband, Angel Clare. Tess represents the class of women who are deprived of their rights and are always treated inferior by the society and experience injustice. Tess, being an ordinary village girl, seems to be simple and straightforward. She is not justified in terms of her natural right to choose her man in life. She is seduced by Alice, who forcefully attains her for his gratification. Here, the principle of poetic justice comes into the minds of the readers: reward to the virtuous and punishment to the wise. Whereas, in this case, virtuous characters suffer for no fault, and the wise, as represented by Alice, enjoys all luxuries in life. Angel Clare's perceptions and degeneration of Christian values show the lack of principled human life. People start disbelieving the concept of poetic justice. All the characters and their respective roles determine their ultimate loss and gain. But in case of Tess, she suffers throughout her life, irrespective of her nobility and virtues. Theme of social values. The novel Tess of de Urberville's presents a complex picture of the 19th century British society. In the Victorian era, the people gave extreme importance to one's belonging, family background, and inheritance. All these three features can be studied in this novel with reference to various characters and their acts. Derbyfield is a powerful symbol for these social values. They are poor and discover something strange, that their family has a legacy to the de Urbervilles. On the other hand, Simon Stokes, who changes his name after the retirement, assumes de Urbervilles as his new family name and lives in a mansion with all possible luxuries and gains the respect in the society. Reverend Clare, principled and quite dedicated for religious cause, becomes a clergyman in the pursuit of name and social status. Angel Clare decides to take up farming as his profession. His mother, Mrs. Clare, wants him to marry a suitable girl who will be a perfect match in terms of social, economical, and Victorian standards. On the contrary, he wants to marry a milkmaid, which is quite revolutionary for his mother. These families represent this particular facet of the contemporary people. Tess, the central character, also represents some social values. Her own set of values, ethics, are nothing but epitome to the 19th century women's lifestyle and consciousness of her being for a woman. Similarly, the novel also tells us about the Victorian values, social standards, and personal ethics, the theme of male-dominated British society. The novel presents a clear picture of the Victorian society in which male had certain domination over the female. The social values indicate that men are preferred and given more importance than women. All restrictions and taboos are suggested and expected from a woman, whereas men are totally free from all taboos and restrictions. Within a family also, treatment given to a woman and a man, or a daughter and a son, differ and is biased based on their gender. Since long, men have been the controlling and commanding all affairs of family and social life. It is obvious that the promoted social standards give certain liberty to men and restrictions to women. Women are deprived of their rights as well, which shows partial treatment given to womankind. In this novel, Tess, the central character, symbolizes Victorian women. She is dominated, harassed, abused, and seduced by Alice. This shows the typical tendency of a man towards women, assuming her a tool for gratification. Tess' marriage turns unhappy once again. Her past life is revealed to her husband, Angel Clare. Tess forgives him for his past deeds, but he does not. It shows the typical male tendency of expecting purity from a woman irrespective of one's own. The theme of struggle in life. The novel has one more recurrent theme of struggle in life. Tess is the central character, symbolizes this human struggle and suffering. She is deprived of her right to choose her man. She is abused and seduced. Moreover, she suffers for no fault. These phases in the life of Tess are effectively presented by the novelist as the perpetual struggle of a Victorian woman to live life and settle as an individual. Life is uncertain, and many things happen which are beyond our imagination. Tess is the victim of circumstances and pays for no fault. Her proactive flight from loss to gain and again to loss forces her to take revenge upon Alice the seducer. Her life is full when her husband forgives and accepts her. Ultimately, she takes revenge and later executed by the court of law for the crime committed. Hope you have enjoyed and learned the novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles as a lifetime struggle of the central character Tess. See you once again in the next session. Thank you.